I'm going to turn it back over to you since you are moderating this, and you can
Yes.
introduce our next panelist.
Well, thank you. Hello and welcome. Our next session is County Health Department Cooperations. My name is Christina Ferroli. I'm with the Indiana Cooperative Development Center, and I am going to be your moderator. Amanda is going to be our facilitator. And for this session, we're going to take a look at farmers markets and their relationships with the health departments. We know that that relationship can make or break or create confusion for the farmers markets, and in particular also for the vendors. And this could become a problem when vendors are actually selling in multiple markets and across counties. So for this session, we have two wonderful speakers. We have Lydia Armstrong, who's the owner of Gluten-Free Creations out of Indianapolis, Marion County. And we have Lee Rowan with the Fort Wayne Farmers Market and with Big Brick House Bakery. So if you would each introduce yourselves, and we'll get started with Lydia, and remind everyone to put your questions in the chat box, and Amanda will summarize and we'll have a Q&A at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. I appreciate the invitation to come be part of this discussion today. I'm Lydia Armstrong and the owner of Gluten-Free Creations. I will be in business as of April this year, 7 years. So I've been involved with many area local farmers markets to sell my gluten-free baked goods. So I got started, with different recipes and such in regards with the many colleagues that had gluten sensitivity and other challenges before I realized that gluten was also my issue before I went gluten-free as well. So it's just been an opportunity to be able to share my baking expertise and fun that I like to do and experiment to make delicious baked goods for people with those sensitivities or allergies or who have celiac. So I also help people who have other allergies or sensitivities with making other things free of allergens. But again, since they are present in my space outside of gluten, they are made aware when they do purchase those that they could come in contact with those other allergens outside of gluten. So but it's just been a pleasure to be able to do that these last 7 years.
Would you like to share on some of your challenges that you've experienced over time working in different markets, and also share what markets you vend at, Lydia, please? And then we'll turn it over to Lay.
Okay. So I've been involved with ones that are in Marion County and Hamilton County, as well as Hendricks County. So in the last couple of years, I've been involved with Fisher's Farmers Market. And then in downtown Indianapolis, I was part of the original farmers market that was used to be down at City Market. And then at the State House Market and Eskenazi Health Farmers Market. I did the Speedway Farmers Market, and then I do the Avon Farmers Market out in Hendricks County. So, things have just fluctuated over the years of just, finding ones that really are productive for me, are successful. I also did the Indy Winter Farmers Market for a time. And, sometimes things just come in waves of, where, our target lies. So in this last year, due to COVID, there were more restrictions put on home-based vendors. And so because there were some of mine that were closed, the Eskenazi Health Farmers Market closed theirs, as well as the State House, due to no one being in their buildings, because the bulk of the Eskenazi Health Farmers Market are from their business administration staff, though we did get hospital workers, doctors, nurses, etc. The bulk of our people were from their business admin building, and those were working from home. So that was closed. And then, of course, the State House, because the government workers were also working from home. So in this last year, I only did Fisher's Farmers Market and the Avon Farmers Market. When I would inquire to other local farmers market to try to add some back into my schedule, most of those had not allowed home-based vendors to participate due to COVID. They were assuming that, I guess, we weren't going to be as as sanitary, I guess, as a commercial kitchen, which, myself, I have my Serve Safe certification. And so I take that, I don't take that lightly, make sure that everything is clean and sanitized and ready to keep everybody safe. So it was a little frustrating having that challenge and not being able to participate in any additional farmers markets due to that restriction. I'm not sure how that's going to change for this year. I just started putting in applications so far. People are allowing home-based vendors. So I'm very pleased to see that returning.
Can you share with us some of the challenges you've come across as being a home-based vendor in farmers markets, and how things may be different from county to county, since you've identified you vend in 3 or 4 different counties with? Thanks.
Yeah. For the most part, things are very similar across counties of, what I had to have, in place, such as for labeling and things of that nature. Because I know that's become a problem over the last couple of years of, one county would say, well, you need to have a particular label, or they just allow you just to have the placard, or, you'd be back and forth. I've always provided labels on all my stuff, just because besides gluten, I have so many others that have either sensitivities, tons of sensitivities more than allergies. And so they're looking to see, what they contain, just in case I'm busy, they have a label to read on the item. So hasn't been too much a difference. The only thing, when I used to do sampling, about, what kind of hand washing station and things of that nature that had to be there, but I don't do sampling anymore because it was just more of a challenge and more of a waste of resources to do that. But pretty much across the board, rules were basically the same. It's just a matter of getting used to and getting to know those health inspectors within the county. And so, now that I've been doing this for almost 7 years, I know most of the health inspectors that come to the markets. And so, a lot of times they'll just do the one check, and they know that I do my labeling so well that they don't get too excited when they see me. They just know, you're home based, and they just, confirm everything and double check things. But they're always pleased of how thorough I am with all my labeling. So
how'd you go about building a relationship with the different health department inspectors?
It's just when I would meet them at markets. So just so they could get to know me for what I do and what I produce, as well as just talking through, how I try to be safe, and as well having my Serve Safe certification. I think that helps in the to be just more aware that I am aware of what best practices are supposed to be happening while I'm preparing these foods. Because that's the last thing I ever want to do, is to make someone sick or ill due to my product. So it's just, going out of my way to make sure to talk with them and introduce myself. And, if they ever have any questions, just to feel free to ask. But it's just going out on my own and just inquiring and talking with them, just to build that safe relationship.
Have you found any markets that you weren't able to vend at, and how'd you approach that? I know you can decide on your own if you want to or not vend, but have you approached any markets that have said, well, we don't accept home-based vendors?
Well, just recently, there's a new one that's come out. It's with the White River State Park Commission here in Indianapolis. They're doing an inaugural year of doing a market there on Sundays twice a month for 2 months. And when I read through their policies, they first stated that it was just for, people preparing baked goods in commercial kitchens. So, I reached out to them and said, is there a reason why you're not allowing home-based vendors? Because that has been a challenge, especially in this last year, due to COVID policies. And so that market master or person that had sent out the information, she went back to those commission directors and other people that were involved with planning the market, and inquired if it would be fine to add home-based vendors. And she came back to me the next day and said, after discussing with them, they decided that it would be fine to allow home-based vendors into this group. So, as long as we participated and make sure we had our labeling, et cetera, per the guidelines. So I was really excited that, just by inquiring and asking more questions, that was able to open that up to other home-based vendors as well.
Thank you, Lydia.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And Lee, if you'd like to introduce yourself and share with us your insights and your relationship with the health department.
Lydia had some really great points. And I started out as a home-based vendor and then moved up into my own retail space. And then now I've switched, excuse me, to all wholesale. So, I've kind of went through every gamut and every label requirement that's in the food industry. So, which has actually helped me quite a bit in my various endeavors. I think the Board of Health is there, and a lot of home-based vendors, when you say you have to go to the courthouse and talk to the Board of Health, or you have to make contact, it's intimidating to them. And so I try to work with them to lessen that fear as far as being a home-based vendor and stuff. I've, like Lydia, I've been in, multiple counties. I've crossed state lines, I've had various experiences as a individual business. And then on the flip side, with me starting the Fort Wayne Farmers Market in 2012, because we're so close to Ohio, I have vendors that come across the state line. And so they have different cottage laws. And then we actually have meat producers from Ohio within our radius. And so then they had to work with our local Board of Health to get their meat, processed in Indiana to be sold in Indiana. So there's some different things that we've ran into. Recently we found out, because our indoor market is at Parkview Field, the laws have changed for alcohol. So we can't have alcohol like a winery, which was previously discussed at Parkview Field, because they have a liquor license, and so you can't have conflicting. So that law has changed. So so there's a lot of things are always ongoing and moving, and so a lot of times I won't give a specific answer, but I'll always pull in the Board of Health to make sure it's the right answer, because I don't want to give anybody the wrong answer then have them get into trouble. I think with the Board of Health, because we're so good at working with them, like every start of every season, I send them any food vendors, what they're selling, what their category is, farm, home-based, commercial kitchen, that they rent from, one of the local kitchens. and or they have their own kitchen. So I try to give them as much information as possible. And I think they like that in reference to that if there is a problem, they know that we have all the contact information and that vendor would be easy to find. I think that was beneficial with COVID in regards to basically when it hit, there, Indiana was scrambling, to keep, to find their right answers. And so I just said, this is what we're doing. And they said, great. Because I think they just felt more comfortable knowing that we are on top of the game and not waiting for them to come about. I think it's wonderful that, Lydia has worked with, various markets to be accepted. And the only thing that I require for our home-based vendors, well, actually any of our food vendors, if they're sampling or making food, we do require a serve safe. Because that is one of our requirements, we've actually negotiated with the National Serve Safe so you can get a discount, for your serve safe. And that gives it another level. And then they also have to provide insurance. I think that's some of the smaller markets are concerned about liability, which is an actual, it can be a problem. So, we just have to make sure that they're properly insured. And, the farmer's market is listed as an additional insured while they're with the market. So it's kind of, I don't have a problem with home-based vendors because I was one. I think it's great. I think it's part of the natural progression for an idea to fruition as a brick and mortar bakery or producer of a product. But we want to make sure that they're prepared in business. And that's one of the things that we do on our website, which I did give you the website, is under Vend With Us Today. We have multiple links that if it's required from you to be at a market, there is a link on our website for you to get that qualification.
So what were some of the challenges that you found with COVID at different markets? And what are you hoping like for the future as we move forward into the summer 2021 season?
Well,
and what could help? What can health departments do to help?
We actually, when COVID hit, we actually reduced how many vendors were indoors so we could have ample spacing. And it was a difficult decision. And then when we started indoors this fall, we had to eliminate about 10 or 12 vendors each Saturday to continue to allow that proper spacing. Once it started, we didn't allow buffet sampling. So if there was a bowl of chips, a bowl of dip, or different samples of beef sticks or whatever, we didn't allow a buffet of food to be out. So if you were going to do sampling, they had to be in sealed containers and had to, be handed to somebody, and then it was done. Like on a tray, here's a tray of samples, grab one, move along kind of thing. So you didn't have people standing and grazing, in front of your booth. So there was a lot of things. And actually right now we're still not doing sampling until our county gets into a different category, as far as down to a yellow. So we're trying to be proactive, and it's not anything that the Board of Health asked us to do, but it's something that when we talk to vendors, they felt more comfortable in that environment.
Lydia, would you like to share anything that you shifted per COVID and what's working with you and what you hope for the future?
Just being more mindful with my customers, because there are still some that are very cautious with interacting with others. As the farmers markets that I was involved in, they made it in such a way where we were set up even further apart than usual, because usually we were right on top of each other. And I think both Avon and the Fisher's Farmers Market did a tremendous job on keeping us spaced apart, which gave my customers that extra, seem to have that extra protection, if you will. If when they came out, they didn't feel like they were overcrowded, or that they could possibly come in contact with someone that would have that much concern. And we had things in place to keep people mindful of the 6 feet social distancing, and overall, I think it did really well. I still had a few customers who would rather me meet them in the parking lot instead of coming to the tent, because they just didn't want to be there. I know at the Fisher's Market, they were encouraging those who either are a high risk or older folks to come early, which gave them an opportunity, especially with a lot of my highly autoimmune deficient folks, that helped them to feel more secure to come early, because then they knew they weren't going to be able to have to interact with so many people. So it's just been a learning curve, just to even to get to know my customers even more, and to help them to feel as safe as possible, to come and see me, or to be able to get my products.
How about you, Lee? Would you like to share also some strategies that you took into place or saw?
Well, what we actually found is, yes, we actually did open our doors a little bit earlier. We actually, there's always the early bird shopper at every market. So, but we did see a slight increase there, but we actually saw that we used to chart like our busiest hour between, A and B kind of thing. And we actually saw that our numbers didn't decrease, but the crowd naturally thinned itself out, as far as they staggered themselves. It wasn't anything that we did on purpose, but they were so mindful to their own health and to everybody's health that they actually did it really well on their own. There was only a few times that we actually held a line, and everybody did great at spacing, as far as for the indoor market. And, everybody was very patient and respectful and understanding. And I just think that's a huge credit to, our society, because it's important for these small businesses. I mean, I could see the writing on the wall. And I mean, I wrote the governor, the Department of Ag, asked Heather. I was really involved in making sure that the farmers market was listed as essential, because we were the direct food source. When all the other stores were out of, when the big box stores was out of food, we actually saw a huge increase, and so did our vendors, on orders. And having those resources on our website, how to contact the vendors, their sales shot up like crazy. And so even though their sales shot up, it was a pick up and go versus standing and looking over things and picking up items. But our vendors, like our produce vendors, bagged all their items, kept the items behind them, and basically handled it like a deli. Excuse me. So if you went up and said, I want a bunch of carrots, put carrots in a basket and slid it down the line, and then you told the next guy you wanted celery, and they slid it down the line, and then you paid for it. So a lot of vendors set up their own, where one person was handling the produce, it was already bagged at the farm, and the other person was just handling the money and all the transactions. So everybody worked really hard, and it was well received. And the new customers really appreciated to know that the person selling that produce was the only person touching that produce. And it was very important to them.
Okay, thank you for that. How you shared with us that you were able to shift your business from a home-based vendor to retail and now to wholesale. How did you do that? And how, did you work with the health department or the state health department in getting that all put into place? Could you share a little bit about your natural progression and lessons learned?
Well, the home-based vendor part, I actually was retail because back when I opened my business in 2007, there was no cottage laws in Indiana. So I actually started as a retail. And then when we moved from Wabash County to Allen County, I switched back to home-based until my kitchen was done, and then I could be certified for wholesale. So I actually had a retail business in Wabash County and sold then at the farmers market to help build my brick and mortar. And then, like I said, when we personally moved for job reasons, then I was able to go to home-based vendor because that was allowed now in Indiana. So I've kind of seen various things, and I'm appreciative to what home-based does, but it's also to allow the people to transition into a commercial setting. And that's I think one of the great rewarding things as a managing the Fort Wayne Farmers Market is we've in the last year we've probably had 6 or more transition from home base to where they rent a commercial kitchen to now where they're building their own commercial kitchen. So it's great to see that process and the communication. Once I realized that, the Board of Health wasn't the big bad wolf, then I was able to communicate and feel at ease and to help them to work through it as well. And so it's really rewarding to see a lot of other small businesses take root in the community.
Well, thank you. This one's for either Lydia or Lee. What do you feel are the most limiting to home-based vendors? Do you identify any current laws or regs that are in place that you feel truly limit your ability to do business? And how and why, or how would you change those?
I don't think there's really, I think any of the things that limit a home-based vendor are actually there for the community's protection and not to limit them. The Board of Health has a huge amount of responsibility to ensure safety. And I think that's one of the things that a market master can do is help bridge that gap and on the day-to-day basis, because sometimes things are overlooked because the Board of Health inspectors get busy, especially lately where their job is entailed so much more. So I really don't think the current Board of Health laws limit vendors. I think they're actually to be able to sell from your roadside stand, which is at your property or an agreed upon location, and then or a farmer's market, I think actually helps the home-based vendor. Like I said, when I started in 2007, there wasn't even a cottage law. So you had to have a commercial kitchen. So, and then I went, then I went to a home-based vendor during my transition time, which was only about 6 months, but I don't think there's really anything that really limits them at this point, as far as with the safety of the community in mind.
Thank you.
I would have to agree with that. Though, I mean, I get a lot of customers wanting maybe like cheesecakes or,
right.
Yeah, because I make a mean cheesecake, but there's things that I just explain to them, the reasons why I can't make that for them. So, it's not that I don't want to, but in order for their safety and as well as what is, what the health department has put in place for guidelines, excuse me, that, it's just for their safety and their health. And I mean, they get it, but, sometimes you have to explain that to them so they don't get too bent out of shape sometimes.
Well, I actually have an interesting perspective on that as well, because one of the first people I worked with, a fellow vendor, her husband's an attorney. So he helped actually set up her business as a home-based vendor. She later went on to commercial kitchens and became an Indiana artisan with me, but he's really knowledgeable. And so he's still our attorney because he's got such a unique perspective, because then she ended up, helping me launch the farmer's market. So he was very intricate. So it's actually better for a home-based vendor as far as protection wise, because it really limits your liability if if you're not properly insured. And that's one of the reasons why we always ask for verification of insurance and to be enlisted. It's actually for your protection. It's more of a headache. It's another step. It's another expense. But when somebody says, make me a cheesecake, and somebody gets sick because maybe they didn't store it properly,
Right.
you're still financially liable. And quite honestly, I don't want to lose my house over a cheesecake. So-
Good point.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I, even with some of my other fellow home-based vendors, if they're just getting started or wanting to start in a market for whatever they're making, they get concerned about, the insurance and keeping, and having that and the expense of that. And when I tell them how much that I pay per month for it, they're like, oh, that's all. So, once they get brought down to earth of how inexpensive it is for the type of amount of policy of $1 million policy, a limited liability policy, then they, can breathe again. But, having that is just, it's just your extra protection.
We actually have customers that like the fact that we are strict on having a serve safe and having insurance, because then they are comfortable shopping at our market. It actually, it helps build the customer base for these home-based vendors when the whole market is of the same mindset. And there's a level of comfortability, because I actually, when I first started the market, that's one of the reasons why I've taken it into, more certification type, is because I had customers say, well, okay, well, which one's a home-based vendor? Because I don't want to buy from them. Mm-hmm. And so for me to say that all my vendors are insured, they all have ServSafe certification, I think has helped with the sustainability of those businesses, which took them, and it also prepares them to become a brick and mortar. So it's not about just today and this cookie, it's about your business, your family security, and, preparing you, to go further with that business plan.
Well, thank you. I think we're gonna turn it over to Amanda and see if there's any questions in the chat. So please type your questions into the chat so we can get those addressed.
So one of the first questions that came up was, is there a state requirement to have a ServSafe certified individual for home-based vendors at the farmer's market? That may be more of a Lisa question.
What?
The individuals want to know if there's any state regulations about having a ServSafe certified individual at the market.
So do like the home-based vendors need to be ServSafe certified?
No, they don't. It's actually up to each individual market on what they require. I required it about 3 years ago, and I think Carmel has just went to that as well. I think it's going that direction.
Yeah, Carmel does not allow any home-based vendors. They don't allow them at all. So
that's true. Well, that's true too.
So it doesn't matter if I'm certified or not. They won't allow me. So
it's snubbed once again.
That's right.
Is there a natural point at which you make the move from home-based vendors to a certified kitchen? Employees, market access, liability?
I think one of the biggest things is, I think when the market supports that, like we help them find commercial kitchens to rent. We work with them on helping to find the insurance from our other, vendors. So I think it really depends on the support on how easy it is, because there's so much unknown. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about connecting those dots, is because I had to connect those dots on my own. When you go to the Chamber of Commerce, they're meant for dealing with companies that are 300 employees, not a newbie kind of thing. So it's one of those things that's, I think the transition really probably depends on the network that's around you. I think finding another home-based vendor that has transitioned into wholesale or a retail would probably help you with some pointers, what made the transition easier.
And just a note for ServSafe, it is required for all food retail to have person in charge ServSafe certified. Right. So as Lee shared, that would be an awesome transition for you to make. And you're already there with the certification.
Well, the ServSafe that we negotiated for a discount is for the food handler, but you still, which is only like $12 for the food handler. So it's, I think, normally $35. Okay. So it's a significant discount. So, but you can contact us us through an email and I'll send you all the information to get the discount. You do get a $10 discount on the manager's ServSafe. So there are different levels of ServSafe. So the manager one, if you have employees, is what you have to have, but it covers so many things.
Yeah,
So
I have the food managers one. Yeah.
oh, do you?
Uh-huh.
I took that. It's changed over the years. It's harder.
It's tricky
Yeah.
sometimes.
So the program Lee is talking about is called the Safe Food Handler, and it currently is a $15 to do the program. It's about 3 to 4 hours, and there is a short quiz at the end. And the Indiana Restaurant, Hotel, and Lodging does offer that with a discount. So you're more than welcome to chat with Lee about that.
Yeah.
But neither are required for home-based vendors.
No.
As we had kind of talked about this discussion in the planning committee and with you guys, we really wanted to try to drive some discussion regarding the new legislation that's being presented, where currently as it sits, they're opening up those home-based vendors to sell anything that, they grow or produce to that end consumer directly, remotely, or through an agent or third-party vendor. And there's a few questions in the chat that as we've seen online sales increase through COVID, thoughts? I mean, was that a barrier as a home-based vendor not being able to do online type sales?
Well, back when I started my business, first of all, the internet was right up there with, at this point, dinosaur knowledge. The wheel was just being invented. So we didn't have that access. And like I said, when I started, we didn't even have cottage laws or home-based vendors. We have a lot of vendors that have an online platform and take the orders and then that get picked up here or get picked up at their driveway. The only thing that I caution my bakers with is when people know where you live, you need to be careful.
Right.
So I would say because of traceability and accountability, there are some things in this legislation that does concern me because of that. And it's not about trying to squash the little guy, because I was the little guy, still am the little guy, but it's just one of those things that it's just part of the food labeling and certifications and stuff. And Christina can speak to that on federal level and state level, as she's aware of that. We've had discussions prior to coming on live, but and insurance and liability and protecting yourself as a business. So I've got kind of mixed feelings about the new legislation. Lydia, I don't know if you have anything to.
Well, I mean, to a point, sometimes there's concern of, someone knowing where I live, but people can still get my information.
Right.
Good old Google. I still get calls. I just got a call this week where a lady's like, oh, well, we just drove by and we see it's your house. And then I read it, you're a home-based, and I'm like, yeah. So, they're coming by to get something. And it's like, well, I don't have anything here. I don't keep everything on hand to, hope that you're going to stop by and pick up.
Well, that's a really good, because there are a lot of HOAs, the residential covenants, and you can't have foot traffic. You can't have a small business in some of these new neighborhoods.
Right.
You can't even be an accountant or a lawyer and work out of your house. So, they really are frowning upon that. So, there's actually things bigger than what, Indiana food laws are covering at this point.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a specific question for Lee. Are meat vendors considered home-based vendors in Allen County?
Not that I'm aware of. I've never had any problems with any of that.
Yeah. And we had an individual, kind of add to this discussion. I have consumers who can't come to the market because of their work. If we could drop home-based vendor products off for them weekly when they're in town, why is this why would this be a danger to the consumer? It seems to be a limit for home-based vendors.
home-based vendors actually have a great opportunity to, if you see a need to grow and to develop your business plan, don't let the terminology limit you and your goals. I mean, if you see that you are having a huge amount of requests for this, then take the step of becoming, and renting a commercial space where you aren't limited. We work with vendors all the time doing that. It's not that hard of a process and not that expensive a process. Actually, if you get inspected by, the state for wholesaling, and you can still do retail, I mean, there's not even a cost that's incurred. So it's really, I mean, don't limit yourself or your goals for your business.
Lisa, do you might have anything to add on this topic? I'm sure your expertise would be.
Sorry, let me unmute her real quick, everything. I don't really have anything to add. I think Lee had some really good comments that, it is a good opportunity for you to not limit yourself by expanding. And I've spoke with many home-based vendors that have expanded their business and went the retail and wholesale route. And you are right, Lee, a lot of people like to go to the wholesale route because that enables them to sell everywhere. And you're right, there is no fee associated with that. They could do retail and wholesale, and hey, it's it doesn't cost anything.
Yep, everything.
Unfortunately, it's not much that I can say about the new legislation. It is moving forward, and we're in part of that, part of discussions with that. So there's not much that I can say. But as far as delivery, there's something to be said about face-to-face interaction. We were talking about gluten and allergens and all those kind of things. And if the consumer is able to ask you questions, that end consumer can't ask you questions personally about that we're just kind of dropping things off, that might be something that's a disconnect. And that would be, whereas retail and wholesale facilities have more liability insurance and such on their side because of their business, home-based vendor may not have that. So that, that little interaction there is a really good thing for the home-based vendor and the end consumer. But as far as what will move along, we'll move along, and we'll deal with it as we go. But I appreciate these two great speakers.
Aren't they voting on that this morning or something? Weren't they supposed to have a meeting this morning on that? I don't even.
I did this instead of that today, so I know that that there was supposed to be some movement in the committee, but I don't know what that is right now. I'm not privy to it because I'm here with all you all.
Oh, you were picked us. We feel privileged.
I feel privileged too. I like this stuff.
That's right.
There is one specific question in the chat box for Lisa specifically. If you only sell fresh produce you grow yourself, are you considered a home-based vendor?
That if you only sell produce, produce is kind of an odd bird in that produce, yes, you are considered a home-based vendor, but produce can be sold in lots of locations. You can sell it locally and at farmers markets, roadside stands. Thing about produce growers, though, that you have to be aware of are the new FSMA laws related to produce, and they have a limit of how much money you can make, and it depends on your products. So if you are strictly a produce person and you're wanting to really grow that business, let me know, because I can get you in contact with our produce consultants to help you with those FSMA law requirements if you indeed meet those requirements. But long story short, yes, you would be considered a home-based vendor for that. And yeah, somebody just put in there below 25%, $25,000 produce. Yes.
Yeah, and since we're a year-round market, we have vendors that grow produce year-round, so they're more likely to hit that versus somebody who's just growing through the summer. So, I mean, there is, some differences in that regards too. But once you're growing year-round, like our vendors that grow year-round sell to restaurants, and sell commercially to other wholesalers. So there is more opportunity to grow year-round. So.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And if you want to head in that direction, just let me know and I'll get you in contact with them. But yes, you are considered a home-based vendor.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have a shameless plug on that. The Purdue Safe Produce team will work with any grower that's kind of at that role and wants to make sure that they're following those FSMA rules to a T. We have individuals that can come on farm and help individuals out with that. So shameless plug for that. Katrina Hall with Indiana Farm Bureau did pop up and tell us that home-based law, the House bill 1103 was amended and it moved out of committee. So legislators need to hear from home-based vendors about the marketing flexibility, you know, whatever comments you may have as a home-based vendor, you might be contacting your legislator about that. So a couple of other discussion points. I do love the idea of expanding, you know, businesses by going to the commercial route. Obviously, that's a natural step forward, but that's a lot harder for rural communities. And we're going to have a little bit of a topic about that later, but we don't have access to commercial kitchens. There's only one commercial kitchen sometimes in a 3 or 4 county area. So how do home-based vendors weigh that in rural areas and try to move forward with their business?
Actually, I've got some really great stories on that, because we have people that rent churches that have been inspected. We have people that rent Lions clubs that have kitchens, VFWs that have kitchens that have been inspected. You know, there are multitude, I mean, grocery stores, you know, like they close at, 7 o'clock, you can go in and use their kitchen kind of thing. It all depends about the partnership that you're able to develop. So, like up here we have 2 commercial kitchens that's all they are. They're there for my type of vendors that go in, make a value added product, and then sell in different retail locations or at the farmers markets. But we have some that come, they rent fairgrounds kitchens, things of that nature. So I think there's a lot that has to do with creativity and thinking outside the box of a business of being a commercial kitchen. So I have a commercial kitchen, and I've offered the use to vendors because of my shift in wholesaling baked goods. I don't do it anymore. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that you just have to talk to other vendors, find out where they're going, and talk to people who've never thought about it. Like, your county has commercial kitchens, so they might not have ever thought about it. So approach it and get a yes. You might get some no's, but keep going until you get a yes. I don't think you need to limit yourself to, I'm stuck in a rural county.
I just want to make a point. Like for me, all my stuff is gluten-free. So me using a commercial kitchen is not feasible.
That's true.
Because of all the cross-contamination factors. Now, if I wanted to partner with any of my fellow colleagues that own some nearby gluten-free bakeries, then I could do that. However, one, she's like all allergen-free. So I couldn't use her facility. Then the other 2 are also dairy-free. So, if I brought in my products, then I'm going to contaminate their area. So, right, just in the, donut counties and Marion County, if I don't want to travel far, those I don't have any options unless I create my own commercial kitchen. I'm in the midst of seeking out property to open up a cafe and bakery that's all gluten-free.
Oh, congratulations. That's that step.
So as I look at more properties this weekend, but that's just been challenging, just trying to find, because I don't need a large space, and unfortunately due to how COVID has impacted the restaurant community, unfortunately a lot of those places are too big for me to move into, because I don't want a 3,000 square foot building. So though I'm looking, it's still challenging, just because I'm trying to find a smaller space, but not too small, because then I might as well just stay in my home. So but it's having that commercial kitchen option, for what I do is just not feasible at this time.
That actually brings up another really good, interesting point, because my retail location in Wabash, I actually had an older Victorian home which has a door into everything, because there's that's all they did was put doors in rooms. So as long as you have a separate entrance and a separate kitchen, you can have a commercial kitchen in your home. And you just have to work with your county and the wholesale and follow their guidelines, you know, mop sinks, hand washing sinks, placements, access to restrooms, those kind of things. So if you have the space, you can actually have a commercial kitchen in your home, which is, you know, one of those things that I've got 2 or 3 bakers that actually have made that step, you know, to control, like what you're saying, to control that avenue.
Right. Yeah. The husband's not on board with that. He would have to lose his garage. So
they take the fun out of everything now.
I know. Party poopers.
A specific question for Lee. I hope this individual always appreciates your knowledge. You said earlier that consumers have reservations about shopping with home-based vendors. Do you think some of that was due to quality of product? And how do you gauge quality products and keep your market items competitive?
You know, that's actually a really good question. And the responses I would get was more of the fact that markets in the past, and again, it depends on the market, hasn't always had the follow through like in documentation like we've had. So I think there was
Lee, I accidentally muted you. I'm so sorry. I was trying to let somebody in the meeting. I did not do that on purpose.
Sure. Okay, so now I don't know where I was at. So it had nothing to do with that specific vendor or the quality of their product, because actually their stuff is really good. It was more the fact that it's the mindset of that individual. You know, when you go out to eat at a restaurant, you know, you want to pick a restaurant that has an A rating versus they're always getting shut down for roaches or whatever. I mean, so I think it's probably due to social media and the awareness that some restaurants are getting shut down. And so I think they just like knowing that there are levels of protection for the consumer. And that's what I was trying to do by, you know, having the Serve Safe now and making sure they're insured for their protection and stuff. So I don't think it had to do with that specific vendor. I just think it had to do with the awareness that's in the community for inspections.
We've had a few comments about, you know, really thankful discussion and working how their works. This has been very helpful as they think about how to move their business forward.
You know, we work with multiple farm markets. We help start other farm markets in other communities. We, you know, work with a multitude of people because, you know, the stair-stepping community businesses is so important. I grew up in a town of 200 people, and one business opens or closes, it's a huge impact. And so if you can take somebody that's a rural business and help them develop or start a farmer's market to help other businesses, it's amazing the trickle effect that it has on the community. So we're always here for communication.
Great, thank you. Lisa, are you still there? We have some more specific questions if we're
Yes.
There is a question kind of on this topic. Hold on. Pin in that. Has Marion County limited the number of certified kitchens in the county? Does anybody know?
So Marion County, I don't know. So we're the state agency. So you would have to contact Marion County to determine that.
And then there was
it's like it's a liquor license. Like liquor licenses are limited, but I don't think it's like a kitchen. It's limited like that.
Right. No, I think it's more people having the money to invest to open them up and then bring people to the kitchen to make it viable. There is still one in Indy, and then there's one in Greenwood that has opened up, and I can't gauge the time of when that became up and running. It's more the cost involved, I think.
Which with everybody, you know, with having businesses closed right now is a really good time to buy equipment. Really good time.
Something that we haven't really addressed yet. This individual says we require bakers to get well water tested annually. Is that a state requirement? It's our understanding that it is, but we've had questions.
Well, you have to remember that the home-based vendor law exempts home-based vendors from retail rule, but that doesn't mean that they can be exempt from all rules. So wastewater, fire, plumbing issues, water issues, all those things would still be, you know, required. So yes, if you have a well, you definitely want to have that tested. It's not required as far as home-based vendor law, but as far as making sure that you have safe food product, that would be a requirement. And then definitely if you decide that you want to go and turn your house into a retail kitchen, I have lots of people do that. Lee, you're absolutely right. Lydia, you're absolutely right about that. You can do that, but you would have to think about that well and that septic system in order for you to do those things.
And then kind of two questions. I'm going to loop them together here to wrap up conversation on this topic. Where can you get information on what constitutes a commercial kitchen? And then is there a waiting list that people, because apparently people are having problems getting those certified kitchens?
That's for me. There's really, as of right now, there's not really a definition per se of a commercial kitchen. The counties are the ones who are approving anyone that would say that it's a commercial kitchen. It's not a state thing. As far as a waiting list, that just depends on that commercial kitchen. That doesn't have anything to do with the regulatory authority. That has to do with the space in that kitchen. So you would have to notify that kitchen that you would want to be on that list. It sounds to me as though this is be a business opportunity for someone who would be willing to take it. But as far as, you know, who has them and all that, remember there are other locations. We use the term commercial kitchen loosely because it just means that it's in a kitchen that is approved to be able to make food items under the retail or wholesale food codes. So that means that the kitchen has to have all of those things related in retail food codes. So that's why things like churches that get inspected, civic groups, VFW schools, you know, all of those things, those are already approved kitchens under the retail food code. So if you came in and you use that space, when you get your retail food permit, the health department would look at that space as your retail space under your food code. So there are lots of options and opportunities. And it's just by building those relationships with the individual people and then talking with your health departments.
Lydia, anything to add or final comments?
With the commercial kitchen that I saw, it's like 25 feet is the maximum from hand washing to a food production area, you know, separate mop sink, separate hand washing sink, 3-bay sink that you can get your utensils into. So if you make cookies and all you have a scoop and a little bit of sheet pan you put your cookies on and it fits into each of those 3 bays, then you know that's perfect. I was very fortunate. I was, you know, during the economic downturn, I was able to pick up, you know, a Hobart dishwasher that washes in 2 minutes, so it avoided the 3-bay sink and all of that headache. So dishwashers are my best friend in their type theming. But so yeah, I mean, so there's some very simple things to be mindful, but you know, all of the Board of Health people that I've worked with, again, they're not the big bad wolf. If you say, this is what I want to do, this is the room I want to do it in, does it qualify? What do I need? You know, what do I have to have? And then you just work that into your business plan. So it's, you know, they're there to help you. They want businesses to grow in Indiana. They want people to thrive and be a part of the community. That's their job. And they just want to keep the community safe. That's it.
All right. Well, we have come to that time of day where we're going to take a half-an-hour break for lunch. But before we do that, one more shameless plug. We did mention Serve Safe and some of those classes that we utilize for, Anyway, you can contact your extension office for Serve Safe options and classes. The food handlers. That's what I was trying to think. So please check with your local extension office for those serve safe classes and those food handlers. There's one in every county, so we are close to you. One other thing here, you can see prompt up on your screen. There is some polls, just 4 questions here about this morning's sessions. We would appreciate any feedback. That is done anonymously. I mean, it'll show up the results here, but we can't tell who puts what. It is completely voluntary, so don't feel like you have to do that. Over the half an hour, we typically at the forum have lightning rounds. And since we're unable to do that on this format, we do have a nice slideshow that kind of updates individuals on some upcoming programs and resources that have been revamped. So as you get some lunch and snack and grab some more coffee or water, you know, feel free to sit here, and that's going to play throughout, and we'll make sure that that resource is also uploaded on the website. But that